Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to use the order of operations. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use the correct order of operations. This is your PEMDAS to solve multi-step problems with rational numbers. So go ahead and get out your binder, turn to the math section, and get ready to take some notes. So in math, we decided a long time ago, math people figured that there's a correct order to do your operations. Remember, your operations are your adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And they said there's a correct order to do this, and you have to go in order of PEMDAS. So no matter how your problem is written, you have to go in this very specific order. You always start with the parentheses. Remember, those look like this. They could also show up like brackets. Sometimes you see brackets for the same thing. Then you move on, after those are done, you move on to your exponents. Remember, your exponent is I'll use a variable base, but that just means any number could go in for that. Your exponent is like this little 3. It tells you how many times to multiply this number by itself. So this would be like x times x times x. If this was 5 to the third power, you would do 5 times 5 times 5. So a lot of people get mixed up and say exponents mean like this would be like 5 times 3, but really that's 5 times 5 times 5. So instead of 15, it would be 125. Under exponents is also including square roots. So the square root of 25 is 5 because 5 times 5 is 25. That's what the square root tells you. So exponents and square roots come next. Then you look at the problem and this is where people always mess up because they always want to do multiplication, then division. But it doesn't matter. If you have 2 divided by 1 times 3, you have to do the division first. It's whichever one comes first, left to right. So whichever one comes first, multiplication or division, moving from left to right in your equation, once those are the only operations left. So in this problem, I'm left with division and multiplication. So I just move left to right and I do that first. So in this case, 2 divided by 1 is 2, and then times 3 is 6. If I had done multiplication first, I would get a different answer, and it would be incorrect. If I did 1 times 3 first, I would get 3, and then 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. So I would get an incorrect answer if I do multiplication first. You always have to do whichever one comes first, left to right. So you move in math like you read. So we would go parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division, whichever comes first, and then the same thing for addition and subtraction. You have addition or subtraction, whichever comes first. So even if your problem said 2 minus 1 plus 3, you would still have to subtract before you add. 1 plus 3 equals 4. If I type this in the calculator, I will get a 4. So don't make the mistake. Don't do addition first. It's not PEMDAS, PEMDAS. It's P, then E, then M or D, then A or S. That's why M and D are both in red and A and S are both in blue. It's whichever one comes first when you move left to right. So let's look at some example problems. We'll start with this one. 3 times 3 plus 4. Go ahead and pause the video, try it by yourself, press play to check, and feel free to fast forward to the answer, and then go back if you need to understand how I did the problem. Okay, so you should have just had time to try this. I'm going to go ahead and do this now. So what I always do whenever I see a problem that's multi-step, I always write PEMDAS off to the side of my paper, and I write it just like this. I go down the line, and I look for any parentheses first. I start with the P. I don't see any parentheses, so I cross it off. Then I go down the line and look for exponents or square roots. I don't see any, so I can cross it off. Now I do multiplication or division, whichever one comes first, and I see multiplication. So what I do is I go ahead and I underline that. I know that I need to solve that problem, so I do 3 times 3. I know that that is 9, and then I bring down the plus 4. Then I do, I look back at my PEMDAS. Multiplication or division? Nope. So I'm done with it. I cross it out. Now I look for addition or subtraction. I see addition, so I can add 9 plus 4 is 13. And that is my final answer, so I always circle it. Your problems should start looking like upside down triangles. This is the process of doing an operation. You want it to get smaller as it goes down and keep it organized. You want to do your work right underneath of the problem above it. So keep yourself organized and keep yourself in line, and you will never mess this up. Let's look at another example. I have 4 plus 2 divided by 1. So I always start by writing PEMDAS vertically on the side of my paper. If you have a hard time remembering PEMDAS, I always just think, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally is a way to remember PEMDAS. I write it in order, and then I go down the line and see if there's any parentheses. I don't see any, so I can go ahead and cross that out. I don't see any exponents. I do see multiplication or division. I see division, so I can go ahead and underline the division problem. And underneath of it, I want to solve that out. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. 4 gets brought down. So I don't see any more multiplication or division, so I cross that out, and I have an addition problem. So I underline it. 4 plus 2 equals 6. You can write it equals 6. You can just write a 6. I always like to circle my answer when I'm done with it, and it should always look like an upside down triangle. You don't need to draw those lines, but you should circle your answer. Okay, let's do just a couple more, and this is getting a little more difficult because in this problem you might see some negatives or some operations. So let's go ahead and look at our PEMDAS. We write it on the side of our paper every time we see operations that are multiple step. I want to go ahead and look at this, and I see 1 minus 4 times 3. Here's what I always do when I see this. Anytime I see a minus, remember, I don't follow the minus rule. I always change my minus to a plus negative. I can do that because it's the same thing. Minus means plus negative. I promise you this will help you whenever you're in algebra, because later on you might get confused on whether something's a minus or a negative. It's always better to just leave everything plus, and if it's a minus, change it to a plus negative. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right off the bat. That's what I'm going to do for me. Now I look for my P. I see parentheses, but there's nothing to do inside of it. So a lot of people will be like, okay, so parentheses means do the 3. Well, the 3 is all by itself in the parentheses. There's nothing to be done. So I can go ahead and cross the P off. There's no exponent. There is multiplication. I know that when two numbers are next to each other in parentheses, that means to multiply. So I know I need to do negative 4 times 3. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12 because it's a negative times a positive. That's always going to be negative, and 4 times 3 is 12. I want to go ahead and just bring down that 1 plus. I look for addition or subtraction, and I see it. I see addition left. It's the last step, so 1 plus negative 12. The rule is if they are opposite signs, I'm going to subtract, and then I'm going to take the sign of the number with the greatest absolute value. So I think about this like I owe someone $12. I give them back $1. I still owe them $11. So negative 11 would be my final answer. If I had not changed that to a plus negative, I still would have gotten the same answer. In this line, I would have gotten 1 minus 12, and I would have had to do the same thing anyway, change it to a plus negative, because that's how we know how to add. Okay, so let's do one more together, then I'll leave you with a challenge problem. So let's do this one. It's getting harder as we go. We do want to get more difficult problems because we want to try to challenge ourselves. So let's look at 3 plus 5 times 8 divided by 4. So we always write PEMDAS on the side of the page. It's important to write that to keep ourselves on track. I look for any parentheses. I don't see any, so I can go ahead and cross it off. Look for any exponents. I don't see any. I can cross it off. Now I'm going to do multiplication or division, whichever one comes first, left to right. That's why I write these on the same line. So I'm going to look, and I'm just going to go down to my problem, and I'm going to see, boom, there's multiplication first. So 5 times 8 happens first in the problem when I read it left to right, just like you read a sentence. So I'm going to go ahead and underneath 5 times 8, I'm going to solve that. 5 times 8 is 40. And then I just bring everything else down. So if this was on lined paper, I would have this on its own line. So I keep looking for multiplication or division. I have another division right here, so I underline it. I do 40 divided by 4, which is 10. And I bring down the 3 plus. And then I don't have any more multiplication or division, so I can cross that out. The last thing is addition or subtraction, and I do have that. I have 3 plus 10, which is 13. So 13 is your final answer. I always like to circle it so my teacher knows that's my final answer. So I'll leave you with this challenge problem. This is a challenge problem because it involves parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So this is a long jumbo problem, but if you just follow an order of PEMDAS and just do one step at a time, it's just a lot of easy one-step equations all thrown in together. So this could be a fun one for you to try by yourself. And if you want to check it, you can always plug it into the calculator. As long as you type it in exactly as it is, including the parentheses, you should get the right answer. If you aren't sure, you can ask me. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it to the end of this video, put it in the comments, red apples or green apples. I'm a green apple guy myself. Today, we learned how to do the order of operations. Hopefully, this was a review and a refresher for you. So now you should be able to use your correct order of operations, your PEMDAS, to solve multi-step problems with rational numbers. So now I want you to go back to your calendar and complete any other assignments you have left for the day. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye!